On a quiet evening in June 1912, the small town of Villisca, Iowa, became the site of one of America's most chilling unsolved mass murders. 8 people, including 6 children, were brutally slain in their beds, leaving a community in shock and a mystery that endures to this day. This is the grim tale of the Villisca Axe Murders. Stay tuned until the end of this video, where we will reveal whether our previous story, The Haunted Bunk Beds of Horicon, Wisconsin, is based on real events or purely fictional. Villisca, nestled in Montgomery County, was a peaceful town of approximately 2,000 residents in the early 20th century. Known for its close-knit community and burgeoning businesses, it epitomized the tranquility of rural America. Families attended church on Sundays, children played freely in the streets, and neighbors knew one another by name. This serene backdrop makes the events of June 10, 1912, all the more harrowing. At the center of this tragedy was the Moore family. Josiah Moore, a successful businessman, owned a local hardware store and was well respected in the community. His wife, Sarah, was known for her involvement in church activities and her dedication to their 4 children: Herman, 11, Catherine, 10, Boyd, 7, and Paul, 5. Together, they were the picture of a happy, loving family. On June 9, 1912, the Moores attended a Children's Day program at their church, an event that Sarah had organized. It was a lively evening of songs, speeches, and recitations, celebrating the children of the community. Accompanying the Moores that evening were Lena, 12, and Ina Stillinger, 8, the daughters of a nearby farmer. The Stillinger sisters had planned to spend the night at the Moore home after the church program. This seemingly innocent decision placed them in the wrong place at the wrong time. The next morning, neighbor Mary Peckham noticed something unusual. The Moore house, typically alive with activity by dawn, remained eerily silent. Mary knocked on the door, but there was no response. Concerned, she called Josiah's brother, Ross Moore, who arrived and let himself into the house. What he found would haunt him for the rest of his life. All 8 occupants of the house had been savagely murdered in their sleep. Each victim had been bludgeoned with an axe, their skulls crushed in a brutal and deliberate attack. The killer had methodically moved from room to room, ensuring no one was left alive. In a chilling and bizarre detail, the murderer had covered the victims' faces with cloth and draped mirrors and reflective surfaces in the house with fabric, adding a sinister layer to the already horrifying crime. The crime scene was chaotic. News of the murders spread rapidly, and the house was soon overrun by curious townspeople and law enforcement. The influx of onlookers contaminated the scene, making it nearly impossible to gather crucial evidence. Despite this setback, some details stood out. The murder weapon, Josiah Moore's own axe, was left at the scene. A kerosene lamp with its chimney removed was found at the foot of one of the beds, suggesting the killer worked by dim light. A plate of uneaten food on the kitchen table hinted that the murderer may have lingered in the house after committing the crime. The brutal nature of the murders and the lack of immediate answers cast a shadow of fear over the town. Investigators and private detectives worked tirelessly, but the case remained unsolved, and suspects began to emerge. Reverend Lynn George Jacqueline Kelly, a traveling preacher with a history of erratic behavior, became one of the most infamous suspects. Kelly had attended the Children's Day program on the evening of June 9, 1912, and left Villisca early the next morning. Strangely, he reportedly told fellow train passengers about the murders before the news was made public. In 1917, Kelly confessed to the crime, claiming he was directed by God to kill the Moore family. However, his confession was inconsistent, and he later recanted. After 2 trials, Kelly was acquitted, leaving his involvement in the murders unresolved. Another suspect was Frank F. Jones, a prominent local businessman and Iowa state senator. Josiah Moore had once worked for Jones but left to open his own hardware store, creating tension between the 2 men. Rumors swirled about a potential affair between Josiah and Jones's daughter-in-law, further fueling suspicions. Some speculated that Jones may have hired someone to kill the Moors, but no evidence conclusively linked him to the crime. William Blackie Mansfield, a suspected serial killer, also came under scrutiny. Private investigator James Wilkerson accused Mansfield of committing the murders at the behest of Frank Jones. Mansfield was believed to be responsible for a series of similar axe murders across the Midwest. However, he had alibis for other crimes, and no charges were ever brought against him. The possibility of a transient serial killer gained traction. Between 1911 and 1912, a series of eerily similar axe murders occurred in the Midwest. Entire families were killed in their sleep, and the murderer often covered the victims' faces, much like in Villisca. This theory suggested a drifter moving from town to town, committing heinous crimes before disappearing. Despite the chilling similarities, no definitive connection was ever established. The Villisca Axe Murders had a profound impact on the community. Fear gripped the town, and the sense of security that once defined Villisca was shattered. Residents began locking their doors for the first time, and suspicion spread among neighbors. The case attracted national attention, with newspapers publishing sensationalized stories and countless theories. Today, the Moore House stands as a haunting reminder of the tragedy. Preserved in its 1912 condition, it operates as a museum and attracts visitors from all over the country. Some come to learn about the crime. Others seek out its reputation for paranormal activity. Reports of unexplained footsteps, whispers, and eerie presences have solidified the house's status as one of America's most haunted locations. Despite over a century of investigations and theories, the Villisca Axe Murders remain one of America's most chilling, unsolved crimes. The unanswered questions linger. Who could commit such a heinous act? What drove them to do it? And why were the Moores and the Stillinger sisters chosen as victims? As we delve into this dark chapter of history, we are left to ponder the fragility of life and the depths of human darkness. The case serves as both a tragic story of a family lost and a sobering reminder of the mysteries that sometimes evade even the most determined pursuit of justice. What do you think about this story? Is it true or fictional? Share your thoughts in the comments, and we'll reveal the truth in our next video. The previous story of the haunted bunk beds of Horicon, Wisconsin, is real in the sense that it is based on a widely reported paranormal account from the 1980s. However, whether the events are truly paranormal or simply urban legend remains a matter of personal belief and skepticism. In 1987, a family in Horicon, Wisconsin, claimed to experience terrifying events after purchasing and assembling a second-hand bunk bed. The parents, Alan and Debbie Tallman, reported strange occurrences such as alarm clocks malfunctioning and going off at odd times, a radio turning on by itself, playing without being plugged in, sightings of ghostly figures, including an old woman with long hair. These events escalated, and the family eventually called their pastor for help. The situation gained media attention, culminating in an episode of Unsolved Mysteries in 1988. The Tallmans ultimately destroyed the bunk bed, believing it was the source of the hauntings. After doing so, the reported activity ceased. Skeptics argue that the events could have been exaggerated or misinterpreted, while believers view it as a genuine paranormal case. Regardless of its authenticity, the story has become part of Wisconsin folklore and continues to intrigue those interested in the supernatural. Subscribe this channel and show your support.